study was published a couple of weeks ago where it basically set the internet on fire, especially in regard to YouTube videos and blogs, because it seemed to blow away all the preconceived notions about how your body uses protein. I was going to write on this study for my Applied Metabolics publication, but when I looked at the study, I actually obtained this study. Luckily, you can obtain it for free on the internet. This is it right here. I'll show it to you. The anabolic response to protein ingestion during recovery from exercise has no upper limit in magnitude and duration in vivo in humans. So what does this mean? Well, you have to get a little background to understand why this particular study is considered so sensational. The reason is that prior studies where they've measured the degree of muscle protein synthesis. Now you have to differentiate between muscle protein synthesis, which has a relationship to muscle growth or muscle hypertrophy, to whole body protein synthesis. This is protein synthesis that occurs in other organs and tissues besides muscles, such as the organs of the internal organs, the intestine, blood cells, skin. This is whole body protein synthesis. Only muscle protein synthesis is related to muscle growth. Now, they did some studies a couple of years ago, and they found that that they wanted to measure the maximum amount of protein that could be taken in one meal after a workout that would promote optimal muscle protein synthesis. And they used different amounts of protein, 10, 20, 30, 40. I think they went up to 50 grams. I don't remember exactly. But what they found, this study involved young men in their 20s who were involved in a weight training program. What the studies found was that muscle protein synthesis seemed to peak out when these, let's call them bodybuilders. They might have been just recreational weight trainers, I'm not sure. But they found in this study that muscle protein synthesis peaked at 20 to 25 grams a day. Now, what that means in practical terms is if you ingested any more than 20 to 25 grams of protein after a meal, any excess protein above that amount would be oxidized and would be not be used for muscle protein synthesis. And this followed past studies in which they also measured the effects of different. Well, anyway, let me get back to complete the thought. Based on that study showing that muscle protein synthesis maxes out at 20, let's say 20 to 25 grams after a workout, the dogma became that followed that you should not consume more than 20 to 25 grams of protein in a meal per meal after the workout, because the rest of the protein would simply not be used for muscle building purposes. There were several factors that were overlooked, however. For one thing, the idea that you could only absorb a certain amount of protein, let's say 20, 25 grams. I mean, for years when I started in bodybuilding, the saying was that you couldn't absorb more than 30 grams of protein per meal. I never found the source of that, but it was accepted as fact by most bodybuilders. Well, it turns out that there is no limit to how much protein you can absorb. The key word being absorbed. There's a difference between how much protein is absorbed and how much is actually used for muscle protein synthesis. Now, this study that I just mentioned found that muscle protein synthesis peaked at 20 to 25 grams in young men in their 20s. The rest of it was supposedly oxidized in the liver. However, that isn't necessarily true, because for one thing, there is no limit on how much protein you can absorb. If you consume a meal that contains 100 grams of protein, you'll absorb 100 grams of protein. But it'll be absorbed fairly slowly, but you will absorb all of it. According to that study, however, they're saying that if you consume 100 grams of protein, while you could absorb 100 grams of protein, only about a quarter of it, or 25 grams, will be used to actually promote muscle protein synthesis. Does that mean the rest of the protein's wasted? While some of it may be oxidized, it depends on the form of the protein you're consuming. If you're consuming a concentrated protein that is just basically pure protein, let's say a whey protein or some sort of protein supplement, then a lot of the protein, if you're taking 100 grams, excuse me, if you're taking 100 grams at once, it's true that a lot of it will be oxidized in the liver. However, as I pointed out in an article in Applied Metabolics, my publication, when you eat whole food protein, it's a different situation because the presence of other factors in food, such as fat and fiber, carbohydrate, all the elements that entail a whole food meal, is going to slow down the protein uptake. So while you'll absorb the full amount of protein, because the protein is absorbed so much slower, there'll be less protein oxidized. So where will the protein go? If only 20 to 25 grams is used to power muscle protein synthesis, where's the rest of the protein going to go in a 100-gram protein meal? Well, it'll go to whole body protein synthesis. It'll be used to increase protein synthesis, skin, hair, nails, intestinal organs, heart, everywhere that protein, which is your body's made of made of protein of water, basically. So wherever there's protein, that's where the protein's going to go. I should also mention there was a study done before the 25-gram study where they gave subjects, I don't think they were bodybuilders necessarily, but they gave them a meat meal, two different meals. One of the meals contained 30 grams of it was a smaller meat meal that provided 30 grams of protein. The second meat meal was a larger portion, which provided 90 grams of protein. And they tested the fate of the ingested protein in regard to muscle protein synthesis. The hypothesis at the start of the study was that the larger amount of protein, meaning the 90-gram portion, would produce a greater degree of muscle protein synthesis than the 30-gram. Now remember, this study was published before they did the 25 maximal protein intake study. Now what the results of this meat study showed was that both eating either the 30-gram protein meat meal or the 90-gram protein meat meal produced the same exact degree of muscle protein synthesis. In other words, taking in the extra protein and the larger meat meal seemed to offer no advantages, but all the protein was absorbed, but only, let's say 25 to 30 grams was used for actual muscle protein synthesis. Later studies showed that, this initial study of the 20 to 25 gram maximal protein intake was done with young men involved in weight training. Later studies showed that older, let's say men over 40, or probably women too, they can actually consume more protein in each meal because of something called anabolic resistance, which makes it a little bit difficult to absorb protein or stimulate muscle protein synthesis. So those later studies suggested a little bit more protein per meal, anywhere from 40 all the way to 50 grams of protein per meal for people that are over 40. And that's the way it held. But I should also point out that the initial study that involved 20 to 25 grams maximal protein involved training only one exercise, leg extensions. It was only a small muscle, well, thighs are a large muscle group, but it only involved one exercise, leg extensions. What if you train more muscles in a workout? In other words, that you did legs, chest, back, whatever. You did several muscle groups. Would you still only absorb 20 to 25 grams of protein? Well, nobody ever really studied that, but the theory was that the more muscle you train, the greater the protein uptake that would be used for muscle protein synthesis. So now we come out with so you have to understand the dogma for years, the advice given by dozens of so-called experts and authorities has been that if you're interested in maximizing muscle protein synthesis for purposes of gaining muscle mass and strength, you should aim, if you're under 40, you should aim for 20 to a maximum of maybe 30 grams of protein per meal. If you're over 40, you could go from 30 to 50 grams of protein per meal. This is the accepted amount of protein for each meal until this new study just came out less than a month ago. And as I said, the title is Anabolic Response to Protein Ingestion, with the key words being has no upper limit in magnitude. Let me put it in a nutshell. What this study says is that all those other studies were flawed. In other words, the idea that anything above 25, 30 grams of protein is oxidized is wrong, and that this study involved giving 100 grams of protein, and they found that the muscle protein synthesis was still occurring after 12 hours, after this protein. So this kind of blows out of the water the idea that you can only take in 25 to 30 grams of protein, or even 40 to 50 for people over 40. What they're saying in this study is you can take in 100 grams of protein, and still get increased muscle protein synthesis. As a matter of fact, in this study, they even suggested, although they only used 100 grams of protein, they suggest that there really probably is no limit. In other words, they're hinting that you could take in maybe 200 grams of protein and you still have the same degree of muscle protein synthesis. The highlights of the study, and I'm going to read it right off the study. Postprandial, that means after a meal, postprandial protein anabolism remains elevated during prolonged hyperamino acidemia. In other words, as long as the amino acids are in the blood, especially the essential amino acids, because what you need for muscle protein synthesis, there's something like 22 amino acids, but only 9 or 10 of them are essential. What you need for muscle protein synthesis are only the essential amino acids. The study is saying as long as the blood has these essential amino acids circulating, even 12 hours or more later, you're still going to get increased protein anabolism or growth. Second point, protein ingestion has a negligible impact on whole body amino oxidation. So what they're saying here is the previous teaching, if you want to call it, or conclusion, that the fate of anything over 20 to 30 grams of protein is oxidation in the liver is false. What they did in this study was they used different tracers. They used one. They actually fed cows a tracer so that they could produce milk where they could measure the fate of the amino acids. They also used tracers in the human subjects where they could actually trace the fate of the ingested amino acids. So they're saying that there's no protein oxidation. So in other words, again, they're saying there's no limit on how much protein can be used for muscle protein synthesis. Third point, muscle protein autophagy is not moderated by protein ingestion. So what they're saying is that muscle protein breakdown is also not affected by protein ingestion, which also goes against the prevailing notions about how protein's used in the body. And the final point is exogenous amino acids are the main precursors in postprandial protein activation. Because it all depends on how much amino acids you're consuming. So let me see here. Let me read the abstract, make it a little bit clearer what this study's trying to tell you. The belief that anabolic response to feeding during post-exercise recovery is transient and has an upper limit, and that excess amino acids are being oxidized, lacks scientific proof. They say that because I guess these earliest studies didn't use the tracers or something like that. Maybe they only measured the byproducts of protein metabolism, such as urea, which is produced in the liver when amino acids are broken down. And anyway, continuing, it says using a comprehensive quadruple isotope tracer feeding infusion approach, we show that the ingestion of 100 grams of protein results in a greater and more prolonged, over 12-hour anabolic response when compared to the ingestion of 25 grams of protein. We demonstrate a dose-response increase in dietary protein-derived plasma amino acid availability and subsequent incorporation into muscle protein. Ingestion of a large bolus of protein further increases whole body protein, net balance, mixed muscle, myofibrilla, muscle connective, and plasma protein synthesis. In other words, it's saying that this increased protein affects protein synthesis throughout the body. Protein ingestion has a negligible impact on whole body protein breakdown rates or amino acid oxidation rates. These findings demonstrate that the magnitude and duration of the anabolic response to protein ingestion is not restricted and has been previously underestimated in vivo. That means in the body, in humans. A couple of things to point out here are that the main type of protein that was used in this study was casein protein, casein, from milk. Milk contains two major types of protein. One is whey, which I'm sure most people are familiar with. The other is casein. Whey is a quick-acting or quickly absorbed protein. 20% of milk protein is whey. The whey protein, after ingestion, peaks in the blood in about 60 minutes, and it's basically gone in 90 minutes. I believe that a lot of these studies that showed the 20-25 gram limit, I think they did use whey protein. Now, this study used casein protein. What's the difference? Casein protein is a long-acting protein that's slowly absorbed. When it's ingested orally, it curdles because of certain peptides that naturally exist in casein, such as caseomorphin, that slow the digestion of the casein, and also the casein is kind of curdles in your stomach. The net effect is you get a very slow release of the amino acids when you consume casein. This explains why casein is often recommended as a nighttime protein source, because if you take it after, let's say you work out at night, you take it after the workout before you go to sleep, you're going to have a gradual release of amino acids 7 hours while you're sleeping, which some studies show an increased anabolic effect. Other studies don't, but the consensus of studies seems to indicate that people over 40 do show a greater anabolic effect when they ingest casein protein prior to sleep. So we know that casein already from the get-go lasts a long time, much longer than whey. This study used casein. Could that have something to do with the extended amino acids in the blood shown by this study? Absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, I would suggest that most of the results of the study do accrue from the fact that it was casein used as the main protein in the study. Now, so what am I saying here? Am I saying that we should discard this study? I should also point out, by the way, I should mention that some of the study authors, there's like, for example, Luc Van Loon and John Tromelin, these are among the top protein researchers in the world. They've produced a dozen, which I've written about in my Applied Metabolics. They've produced dozens of solid studies related to protein usage in bodybuilders and athletes that have tremendous application. This study, however, kind of throws me off because, quite frankly, I don't buy it. In other words, it discounts all the previous studies showing that there's a limit on how much protein can be used for muscle protein synthesis. This study is denying all that and saying there is no limit. If that was true, then you have to follow through at the rational possible results. If they're saying that there's no limit, this is why I doubt this study. They're saying if there's no limit to how much protein can be, I'm talking about orally ingested protein, not intravenous. If they're saying there's no limit to how much protein can be used for muscle protein synthesis after a workout, then that means that the more protein you use, the more protein you ingest, the greater should be your muscle gains, because you're supplying the most elemental nutrient needed to promote muscle gains. So again, the natural follow through is that if 100 grams are good, then 500 grams would be even better. And if you take in 500 grams of protein, because they're conjecturing that no matter how much protein you take in, none of it's going to be oxidized. So if you take in 500 grams of protein, all of it's going to be used for increased muscle protein synthesis, and the gain should be almost equal or comparable to using anabolic steroid drugs. I have a big problem with that. I'm sorry. I have a big problem with that. What am I basing it on? I'm basing it on my over 60 years of experience in bodybuilding, weight training. I've worked with athletes. I've seen how they react to different amounts of protein. I've seen some athletes take in more protein than others. They don't make any greater gains than the athletes who take in fewer grams of protein or less protein. The idea that you could take in unlimited amounts of protein and you'll make unlimited gains is nonsensical. There's always a limit. The idea that you're going to use every bit of protein that you take in and none of it will be oxidized or wasted, I don't buy it. I don't buy it. So this study again is confusing to me because if it wasn't for the background and the knowledge that I attribute to the study authors, I would immediately discount the study. I'd toss it right in the garbage as utter nonsense. But the fact that these guys are involved in the study, it makes me wonder. But again, based on everything I've read in many years of studying protein metabolism, I'm sorry, I just don't buy the fact that you could take in 100 grams or more and all of it is going to be used in muscle protein synthesis. I don't accept it. So I'm sure that there'll be other people. In fact, I've already seen one or two. There's going to be other people making videos, and especially people that sell, this is another thing I've seen, people that sell protein supplements are rejoicing in this study because now, the corollary is that because your body can use any amount of protein, it's going to increase their sales of various protein supplements. They're going to make even more money. So they're talking like crazy about how great this study is. Well, folks, I don't sell protein supplements. I don't have a dog in the fight, as they say, as the cliche says. So I don't buy it. Based on my experience, my experience working with dozens and dozens of athletes over the past 30 years and watching and observing and interviewing countless bodybuilding champions, no. I still think there's a limit on how much protein can be used that will promote muscle protein synthesis. So anyway, so let me draw a line under all this. And my advice to those who come across any other videos or whatever, TikTok videos or whatever, or blogs where they're touting how great this study is and how it changes the whole understanding of how we use protein for muscle building, don't buy, I wouldn't believe it. I wouldn't believe it. The one thing I will say, and this is another thing that's contentious that a lot of people would argue, is some people still say, and sadly, a lot of these people are registered dietitians who should know better. A lot of people still say that excess protein will make you fat because each gram of protein contains 4 calories per gram, and excess calories from any source, including protein, will make you fat. Now, this is what I'm about to say relates to the study. Protein doesn't make people fat. No amount of protein makes people fat. The reason why goes completely against the finding of this study. The reason why no one ever gets fat from eating even larger amounts of protein is because the excess protein is oxidized in the liver. It's broken down into, eventually it's broken down into urea. The nitrogen portion is excreted and turned into urea. You excrete it out of your body through your kidneys, and the protein calories don't stay on you. So if that's accepted fact, and it is, that protein does not make you fat, contrary to what some people say, and the reasoning is that the protein's oxidized, that goes completely against this study, which says that protein Excess protein isn't oxidized. So you know what? I'm going to leave it at that. But I think you can understand my skepticism about this study. I'm very skeptical. I mean, as I said, in the past, the studies that these people, the researchers who wrote it and published the study, I've actually written about them in my Applied Metabolics because they were solid, good studies, about as good as you can get. This study, however, it rings a wrong note to me based on my experience and knowledge of protein nutrition. I don't buy it. I'll leave it up to you. If you think that consuming 100 grams of protein is going to give you greater gains, if you consume it all in one meal, go ahead. Personally, if you ask me for my advice, I'd say to still stick to smaller portions of protein for maximal protein synthesis. And I'm talking about maybe 25 to 30 grams for those under 40 and 40 to 50 grams per meal for those over 40. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you for listening. If you want more information on nutrition, exercise science, anti-aging research, effective fat loss techniques, ergogenic aids, supplement science, which supplements work, which ones don't. As I said earlier, I'm not involved with any supplement company. I don't get any kickbacks. You have to understand, most of the YouTube videos that you see that talk about nutrition or supplements they're getting kickbacks. These people that make these videos, you'll know if they mention products, or they even in the comments in the box underneath the video, if they talk about 20% off if you buy so-and-so supplement, they are being paid by supplement companies to push supplements. You will never see that under my videos because I'm not associated, or in my Applied Metabolics publication, because I'm not associated with any supplement company. So I can tell you the 100% truth. I'm one of the only sources of truth left. Almost everything you see I don't want to sound like one of these politicians where they say everything you see in here isn't true. Well, when it comes to the internet information about nutrition, I have to say that a lot of it is just nonsense. You know, they're commercially oriented. They're looking to sell you stuff, and they're kind of let's say what is it called? They're picking cherry picking information that backs up their claims while overlooking other information. When you read Applied Metabolics, I give you all points of information. I give you both sides of the story. So I also cover women's health and physics. I cover more topics in Applied Metabolics than any other digital publication. So subscribe today. It's at www.appliedmetabolics.com. It's very inexpensive, 33 cents a day. Come on. Who can afford 33? If you can't afford 33 cents a day, geez, there's homeless people that have more than 33 cents a day. So I don't know what to say. And the information I'm giving you could not only help you make greater gains and lose body fat, it can also help save your life. Much of the information I offer in Applied Metabolics is literally life-saving information. So don't wait. Subscribe today, www.appliedmetabolics.com. When you subscribe, send me an email, and I'll send you an invitation to join my private Applied Metabolics Facebook page, where each day I post new information on nutrition, exercise science, and general medicine. I also have an email portal on my Applied Metabolics webpage where current subscribers only, I don't accept unsolicited questions, current subscribers only can send me short questions about anything they might have read in Applied Metabolics or anything that comes to mind pertaining to nutrition and exercise. And as an appreciation and a sort of a bonus for their subscription to Applied Metabolics, I will answer their email. Obviously, you have to be a subscriber to get that service. So anyway, that's about it. If you want to have the best friend you'll ever have, yeah, I know, I still don't have a dog. I'm going to get one. I'm just, my birthday is in February. I intend to I'm going to get a dog before my birthday. I will. And as soon as I get my dog, I'll bring him into the video so you can see my dog. Anyway, take care. Go to your local shelter, adopt a dog. They are the best. The best.